Someday, you might find yourself hurtling through the sky at 35,000 feet, going 550 miles an hour. You might be reading a book, watching a movie, or wishing that the baby 3 rows behind you would finally quiet down. You will probably be bored out of your mind, just wishing you could get out of this tin can full of strangers. In this video, we will make that a reality. Let's assume you grab a parachute and jump out of our plane. Unbeknownst to you, the parachute doesn't work. Hypothetically, you are now falling away from the plane you hated only moments before. Do you have any chance of survival? You have plenty of time to panic before you hit the ground. Terminal velocity of a human body ranges anywhere from 120 miles per hour to 180, depending on the position you are falling in. You have about 6.6 miles to travel, so it will take you between 2 and 3 minutes to hit the ground. You might think that there isn't anything you can do in this situation. While you are almost correct, there is actually one thing that might improve your odds of survival. How you land makes a difference in what kind of injury you will suffer. If you land on your head, you are certain to die. If you land on your feet or back, you might actually have a chance, though it will still be slim. If you land on your back, you will be able to spread the force of impact over a greater area. This will ensure that you minimize the force each part of your body experiences. In this scenario, your survival is still uncertain, as vital areas like your chest, spine, and skull will still take some damage. The other option is to land on your feet. The idea is that you sacrifice the less vital structures of your legs to preserve more important things like your torso. If you land with your legs slightly bent, you will crush your legs into the ground and they will act similar to airbags. Much of the damage in these sorts of scenarios comes from G-force. In a nutshell, G-force is how much force is experienced with a sudden change in velocity. Your mass or weight and how quickly you change velocity is what matters. Slowing this change down can increase your odds of survival. Your legs will allow this change to happen in your torso more slowly and reduce the damage your vital organs experience. This concept is also important for our next tip. What you land on matters. This detail has the greatest impact on whether you will survive. Contrary to popular belief, you shouldn't land on water. Unless you can land in a perfect high diver's position, the surface tension will create an impact not too different from hitting concrete. If you have ever belly flopped in a pool, you would know what I mean. That stinging feeling in your chest is nothing compared to how you would feel falling over 6.5 miles. Unlike concrete, if you fall wrong, not only will you suffer severe injuries and possibly lose consciousness, you will also have to struggle to swim. Even if you manage to survive the fall, you may well succumb to drowning after. You want to land on something soft that can break your fall and slow you down before you hit the unforgiving ground. Things like snow, treetops, hay, or even a glass ceiling can make the difference between life and death. Your odds are even better if you are still attached to something. Let's assume that instead of jumping out of the plane, it suffers a critical error and breaks up mid-flight. In this hypothetical situation, you might panic and try to get out of your seat. Maybe you feel that being tied to this death trap while it rips itself apart and hurtles to the ground would guarantee your death. Don't even think about unclasping that seatbelt. You have much better odds of surviving the fall if something other than you hits the ground first. When Peruvian biologist Julianne Kopeck found her plane struck by lightning, she had little time to react. She tried to find her mother as the plane disintegrated 2 miles above the ground. She wasn't successful, and in the blink of an eye, she was flung from the wreckage, still strapped into her seat. This most likely saved her life. Though experts can't know for certain, they theorize that as she fell, she was actually still strapped to an entire row of seats that may have acted much like a parachute and slowed her fall, as well as absorbed much of the impact. Vesna Vulock was a flight attendant on the ill-fated JAT Flight 367. She began her morning with a vague feeling of annoyance. She wasn't supposed to be on that flight, but in spite of the scheduling mix-up, she agreed to work anyways. Little did she know a man had placed a bomb on board, and as the plane cruised over Slovakia, the bomb detonated and the plane broke apart. Vesna found herself trapped in some of the wreckage of the fuselage. She was pinned by a food cart and unable to escape. She lost consciousness on the way down. She was the only survivor. Despite breaking both legs, multiple vertebrae, her pelvis, several ribs, fracturing her skull, and spending days in a coma, she was alive. Her survival was largely attributed to the wreckage that managed to break her fall. It took 16 months for her to recover, and she even regained the ability to walk. Alan McGee was an American airman during World War II. He had to abandon his ball turret on the B-17 he was assigned to after it was rendered inoperable. He decided to take his chances leaping from the plane rather than be a sitting duck for German fighters. To his utter dismay, his parachute had been damaged by German flak fire, and before he could get another, a section of the right wing was blown off and the plane entered a deadly spin. Alan passed out from lack of oxygen and was thrown from the plane. This was the first bit of good luck Alan had. If he had remained in the hull as it twisted, burned, and was hammered by German firepower, he would have certainly died. Alan then fell over 4 miles before crashing through the glass roof of the St. Nazare Railroad Station. Despite suffering severe injuries, Alan survived the fall. He was taken as a prisoner of war where they treated his wounds. He suffered many broken bones, severe damage to his face, lung, and kidney damage, and a nearly severed right arm. Nearly everyone who survived a fall from a plane has had something to slow their fall or absorb their impact. There is one last thing that can mean the difference between life and death. Be small. It is an unfortunate truth that being smaller means that you will fall slower. The reason for this is that a small person has much smaller weight distributed over a similar area. The wind resistance has less mass to push against and thus is able to more effectively slow you down. This is also why someone who falls in a diver's position will fall much faster than someone who falls in the stable free fall position. While you cannot always control your size and weight, it nonetheless affects your survival rate. At the end of the day, it is certainly the best piece of advice to not fall out of a plane. If you are one of the unfortunate people who find themselves in such a much less hypothetical situation, you would do well to keep these tips in mind. Even though there are only 8 people documented surviving a fall from a plane or similar height without a parachute, every one of them had at least one of these things in their favor. Thank you for watching. If you guys like this video and would like to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think in the comments below. We have even more interesting facts for you in our next video.